MBS Tech Talk with R&D Lee. What's up, YouTube? Welcome to another edition of MBS Tech Talk with me, R&D Lee. All right, today's edition is on the MBS Metal Matrix 2 truck system. So just what can I say? By popular demand, you guys asked for it and we're giving it to you. So the main difference, as you can imagine, is the metal top truck, all right? So it's still Matrix 2, shock blocks, the whole thing, performance, all the great things about that, but you guys wanted the aluminium top trucks on this, and we've just given it to you. Straight and simple. We've gone with a very similar design to what our old Matrix Pros were, because we know that's strong, we know it's light, it ticks all the boxes, and yeah, and it works well. So we've just combined that with our Matrix 2. So all you're going to notice that we've kind of hollowed out the areas CNC to kind of get the weight down, and we've made sure it's nice and strong and well engineered, so it kind of ticks all those boxes. And you notice a nice little kind of logo on there that looks pretty sick, Metal Matrix 2, because it is super metal. Other things to note, we have gone with the hollow axles. I just saw a comment on one of the electric forums today kind of talking about hollow axles, solid axles, which one's stronger. So I thought that might be a good thing to address in this here Tech Talk. So basically, the question, which is stronger, hollow or solid? Well, solid is stronger, because in general, if more material means more strength. But there's kind of a caveat there, and that is the material, it really matters where you remove material from. So if you're looking at basically, say, here's an axle, right? Bam, come down here, and it's got some kind of threads on the end, right? Well, if you go and you kind of look at a cross section of that, and we show you that over here, this is a 12 mil, ooh, we like ours to be around 12 mil axle, right? So basically, if you remove material from the outside, okay, here, and you actually trim that guy down to be a 10 mil axle, well, that actually makes a huge difference. That really reduces the strength, as compared to if you actually remove material from the inside, which is what we do with our hollow axles. And there's a reason for that. So basically, when you look at this cross section, so if I just come down here and kind of say, we actually do slice that axle and look at, engineering terms, it's called free body diagram, getting a little technical, but basically, when you look at this surface here and you look at the stresses, and we're talking about bending stresses here, so when you're landing and there's kind of like torque on your wheels, well, basically what happens is you look at the top fibers, there's something called a neutral axis. So you come in here, you got your neutral axis, and if you're actually bending that, then on top you have compressive forces. So we'll say these are our, pluses are our compression forces. You come down here, and these are your tension forces. So basically all the bottom fibers of your axle are in tension, and all the top fibers, they're in compression. And actually right here in the middle, there's nothing. There's a point where they cross over where literally there is zero stress. So when we do our hollow axles, even though we have removed material from it, we do it in the area towards the center of the axle. So we remove this bit, and you can see right there, we were just kind of removing that little bit right there, which really isn't doing much anyway. So the bulk of the work is being done by those outer fibers. So even though technically a solid axle is stronger than a hollow axle, it's very, very negligible. And in general, as long as you got a 12 mil axle, hollow or solid, you don't have to worry about it. You're not going to bend them. The things are strong, super duper strong. I mean, drive a truck on them or do something crazy, but you see the stuff that we do, that Dylan does. We go huge, and hollow axles are going to do the trick. So it is a little bit more expensive. It's an extra process to hollow that thing out, but we think it's worth it because it just kind of gets that weight down. Especially with the metal top truck, that's the only disadvantage of the aluminum top trucks, is that they are just, they're a few grams heavier than the injection molded one. So, that's a bummer, but by hollowing out those axles, we kind of help compensate for that. So still, at the end of the day, you're left with just a super duper light, precise truck. So throwing that on the scale, 710. So that's just super duper light. Back in the days of the original Matrix, that was around 1 kilo. We got that with the Matrix Pros down to, you know, 8.5, something like that, 850 grams. And now we're down to 710 with this thing. So that's, you know, roughly kind of what the old standard Matrix 2s were from last year. So yeah, weights tick in the box. That just addresses the comment from the guy on the forum about the hollow axles. So hope that helps, not too complicated. One of the other things I wanted to talk about is another comment that I saw, which somebody's kind of like weighing up, hey, I'm not sure whether I should get channel trucks or the new, you know, Matrix 2 kind of style with shock blocks. And that piqued my interest because it made me aware that a lot of people don't actually know that these are channel trucks. So, you know, you can trust us, like we invented the channel truck back in the day, and these are very much a channel truck. So I thought I'd just go through quickly, why is it actually called a channel truck? Because, you know, we use terms all the time that actually we probably don't even know what the origin is. So changing over to a slightly different color. Back almost 25 years ago when we, you know, Jason and Pat and I kind of, you know, started this whole thing, we were doing prototypes, and we, because it's kind of like garage stuff at the time, we just took materials that were available. And to make these trucks, all we did is actually, we had C-channel, kind of old steel C-channel. So it just basically looks like that. You know, and a big long piece of it obviously kind of looks, you know, like that. So basically this is just straight C-channel. And we cut that down, and we noticed that basically if you made another C-channel down here, right, that's your kind of C-channel, and you mate those two together, and then you pin them, so we have a little hole here, and then we just have a pin, kingpin, that kind of pin these two C-channels together. Okay, so if you look at them together, basically it looks like you got your top C-channel, you got your bottom C-channel, and then we just kind of pin those two together. And what that does is basically it means that you get the rotation of your truck, okay, through that kingpin, but because it's actually pinned, truly pinned, there's absolutely no slop whatsoever going in the other direction. So everything you put into that truck in terms of the turn of your foot, you actually get out in terms of the turn of your truck in the different plane. So that pin is the secret of the precision of channel trucks, and that was kind of the genius, you know, behind the idea at the time. As opposed to skate trucks. Skate trucks are fantastic, and they have a kingpin, so people think, oh, it's kind of the same thing. But actually, the rotation on a skate truck does not go around, it doesn't rotate around the kingpin, it goes actually opposite to the kingpin. So it kind of goes against the kingpin. And what you end up with, because it's not truly pinned, you end up with a little bit of bushing slop, which on a skateboard, it doesn't really matter that much. But on a mountain board, it's bigger, you know, they're a little bit heavier, we're going way faster, we're going huge. All that precision really, really does matter, so you want every little bit that you can. And that's why I kind of like the traditional skate truck design. It does work up to a point for mountain boarding, beginners, you're not going huge, things like that. But once you get to kind of a certain level and wanting a certain amount of performance out of your board, you really need to go with the channel truck. So I just want to clarify that these are very much, even though the shape has changed and things look a little bit different, these are very much channel trucks. So I think the reason that people might not think that is actually because of the springs, which brings me to my next subject. So with the Matrix 2, the big difference, and visually the big difference, is something that I kind of underestimated when I did the design, was that they don't actually have metal springs. And in reality, that's actually a good thing, because metal springs are heavy, they add more harmonic oscillation into the system, they don't have enough dampening, so they're good on rebound, but performance-wise and dampening-wise, they're, for a given stiffness, they're way squirrelier than what we can do with our shock block. So there's a lot of disadvantages to springs, but the one major advantage that I hadn't really thought about was that they look great. Springs do look really cool, and people see it and they go, oh wow, that, you know, it's got shocks, it's like got shock absorber, it's, you know, it's got full suspension. In fact, you know, no channel truck, you know, none of these things actually have suspension. They are pinned. So the actual springs that you're seeing, they are resistance to turning. So it's not actually kind of sucking things up, but you look at it and they do look awesome. So that's one thing that I probably underestimated going to the Matrix 2s. But I think over time you'll see that this design kind of proves itself just strictly through the performance. So we do miss out on that kind of like a little bit of a cool kind of spring factor looking at them, but that is easily balanced by the functional advantages that you kind of get out of a shock block system. So I just want to kind of cover that one more time. And those advantages are, weight is a huge advantage. Like I said, we've dropped, over 200 grams per truck. We're talking like, half a kilo. These are like pounds per board compared to the old spring system. So that's a major thing. The other one is actually dampening. Because we can tweak, polyurethane is just an amazing thing. I can't underestimate how incredible that material is. And a lot of that's come from actually the advancements and all the stuff that longboarders are doing, and there's all these formulations that are amazing. So we've kind of taken advantage of that, and that you can formulate a polyurethane to have exactly the rebound that you want, combined with exactly the dampening that you want. So before, you can't do that with a steel spring. We were adding dampeners and trying to kind of tweak with that, but the spring itself, which was providing the bulk of the resistance, that's set. There's very little dampening in that. So this, with a very small piece, we can tweak it to be exactly what we want. And what that allows you to do by really being able to dial in the dampening means that you can actually ride looser trucks faster without speed wobble. So that would be the one big disadvantage of springs, is to get a spring system stable, it's gotta be stiff, and that's why we kind of went from old, designs where the springs were in close, and we moved them out, and everything was kind of going to making these things so stiff that we could bomb hills with because of the springs. And what we found is when we went away from that, we were able to put the dampening into the formula of the polyurethane. Well, we could come back and we could ride with a looser truck and go faster and just, still be able to carve and really kind of dip into it when you want it, but without that element of just squirreliness and wobbliness that really makes it kind of want to oscillate. So that to me is probably the one huge advantage over the shock block. So weight, obviously covered that. The dampening is another thing. And that's pretty much, those are the two main things. The other one would be the rebound range and the ease of being able to change the shock blocks. So now, when we first came out, we had two hardnesses for shock blocks, yellow and orange. Since then, we've added red, so we have just a full range from just something that's rock hard, and you can crank down your adjustment screws to make it even harder, to just, you can bomb and the stuff's just barely even gonna turn. So people that are into that, we have that, all the way down to riding with yellows, to where it's almost like there's nothing in there. You can turn on a dime and just like total slalom. So having that range in a single truck and being able to swap that out, almost instantaneously. I don't know if people who remember the, swapping out of springs and egg shocks and things like that. It's like a four-person job, two people cranking down, really kind of, pushing on that thing, and one guy kind of doing it and putting the thing in there. This can just be done by hand, pop the things in there. That's actually not one, that's a lid. But anyway, super duper easy to do, and that's one of the main advantages. So just the versatility of that rebound range. So that's touching on channel trucks and the shock blocks. A few other things I'd like to touch on, just little differences from the last year's Matrix 2s and the year before, is that we actually have made the hanger a little bit wider than the original Matrix 2s. And actually that kind of came in last year a little bit, so that's been flowing through. But in general, what we found is, this is mainly for the electric guys actually, they wanted a little more clearance. When you start to put rotors on these, pulleys on these, we want to give a little more clearance between there and the deck, and that allows all the DIY guys that are loving these trucks to, it accomplishes that. The other thing just to note is that we have not changed our hanger profile, so that is the same. Anybody in the electric world who has made motor mounts for these, you can rest assured that when you buy a new set of the metal Matrix, your same motor mounts are going to fit. Those are kind of the two things for the electric guys. And from there, just a couple kind of details. One is just talking about the overall quality of these trucks. So I put a lot into last year, into the quality process last year, because unfortunately, I hate to admit these things, but sometimes it's just reality. I saw some photos, come through warranty last year of just quality that wasn't up to the MBS standard, and it kills me to see that stuff. And so when I do, I take it very personally, and I go to the factories and I put processes in place that fixes those things. So to anybody who got trucks, threads, graphics, scratches, anything that was like out of the ordinary, let us know about it. And thankfully people do. That's the only way that we're going to make improvements. Like I said, I hate to even admit that that there has been some of that, but I hope you guys appreciate the transparency of saying when we do see that, we take it seriously and we go back and we fix things. So the quality of this whole truck system, precision, detail is better than any truck that we've ever put out before. So yeah, out of bad things, sometimes good things come. Yeah, the other thing is just kind of details. We've started with the metal matrix. We've actually added in an optional riser, so that if you want to get the exact same height as the old injection molded one, this riser gives you that. It's kind of, got a bit of shock absorption in there, which is good. It's soft. And or of course you can ride without it if you want to, little lower pro, lighter, whatever you want. So that's one option. And as always, I love our hardware. It's kind of a small detail, but this is actually a custom mold. You can see that because we got an MBS logo embossed in it. And it's a nice wide head for a button head. And most M5 screws like this are going to have actually a 3mm hex key that actually adjusts it. This, we've made a custom head that has a 4mm, so you're not going to strip it. That way you can really crank down your deck hardware, your deck truck hardware, just to make sure you got a nice, solid, positive connection between the two. One thing I talked about, just the channel trucks, precision. Well, all that's great, but if you don't keep your hardware tight and you don't keep your kingpin tight and you don't kind of like watch that stuff, then you can lose a lot of that precision just in actual maintenance tips. So do me a favor, every time you ride, go check your kingpin, make sure that's nice and tight, check your truck screws. I mean, I'm kind of like particular about those types of things. So if you want the best performing truck, then maintenance is key. So yeah, if you guys got any other questions, I hope I've covered most of the critical things about the new MBS Matrix, Metal Matrix 2 trucks. If I haven't, then leave a comment down below and I'll address it there. Otherwise, make sure you do subscribe to the channel. We got a lot of great content coming out. This is a super duper exciting year. You've probably seen the Dylan Warren Tech Talk that we did. But in case you haven't, we got just a beautiful board, and these are featuring on it, and it's just an exciting time here at MBS. So yeah, get out, ride, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.